You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Yunus, and before we formally begin, I'd like to note for the record that I will serve as the acting chair for today's meeting. I'd also now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Apollo Theater Redevelopment Corporation for Thursday, June 26, 2025. I'd also like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. We welcome public comment on today's agenda items. I'll note for the record the public was given the opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting their written comments by noon yesterday, and state for the record that no comments were received from the public concerning those items. I'd also like to note that we have no members of the public attending today's meetings. The directors have received the relevant materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to the agenda item. If so, I would ask you please make an appropriate disclosure on the record. We will then be sure to you recuse yourself from any vote or discussion with regard to such item or items. Hearing none, I'd like to ask Carleen Turner-Beverly, Empire State Development's Senior Counsel, to present the two items on today's agenda. Carleen, please start off with the request for authorization to appoint officers of the corporation.
Certainly. Thank you, Acting Chair Eunice. So for item 1, the Apollo Theater Redevelopment Corporation is, of course, a subsidiary of New York State Urban Development Corporation, doing business as Empire State Development. And our first item of business is to handle the appointment of officers with authority as determined by the directors. The current corporation officers, pursuant to a 2015 director's authorization, are President Kevin Eunice, Senior Vice President, there's a vacancy, Vice President Curtis Archer, and Assistant Secretary Debbie Royce. There are additional vacancies for the offices of Second Vice President, Treasurer, and Secretary as things stand now. The new officers that are sought to be appointed to give the corporation a full complement of officers are Joshua Bloodworth as Senior Vice President, Anthony DeLessio as Vice President, Matthew Bray as Treasurer, and Yvonne Cooper as Secretary, with Mr. Eunice carrying on as President, Mr. Archer carrying on as First Vice President, and Assistant Secretary Debbie Royce carrying on in that capacity. And that concludes a summary of item 1. Happy to entertain questions if any.
Tells you how long the three of us have been.
No, 3 still around for this thing.
Thank you, Carleen. Any questions or comments from the directors with regard to this item? As noted earlier, we do not have any comments from the public, and I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Carleen, please continue and present the final item on today's agenda, which is the authorization for the corporation to enter into the first lease amendment to the amended and restated agreement of the lease for the premises located on 253 West 125th Street in New York City.
Happy to do so. Thank you very much. Chair Eunice. For this item, the directors are asked to approve proposed lease amendments to a 1992 ground lease.
Even before our time.
Yeah. Between the corporation as landlord and the Apollo Theater Foundation as tenant. And to also authorize the taking of related actions, including execution of related agreements. By way of relevant background, the premises at issue is located at 253 West 125th Street. Historic Apollo Theater is situated. It is leased to the Apollo Theater Foundation by the corporation, pursuant to, again, a ground lease that dates back to 1992, that provides for an annual base rent of $1 and for a term slated to expire on November 15th, 2083. The Apollo Theater Foundation is currently seeking to fund a renovation of the facility through a tax credit financing involving the federal New Market Tax Credit Program, as well as federal and state historic tax credit programs. Note that there are no ESD affiliated tax credit programs involved in this transaction. As a mandatory condition of proceeding with the tax credit financing, the Apollo Theater Foundation's lenders are requiring certain changes to the 1992 lease, of course, subject to this board's approval. The amendments generally fall under two categories. There's a lot of detail in the provided materials on this item, but I'll summarize succinctly. The amendments generally fall under two categories. First, some amendments allow for the express recognition of various special purpose entities formed as Apollo affiliated and/or lender affiliated organizations that will play a role in implementing the tax credit financing and/or managing the subsequent operation of the premises. Some amendments serve to clarify that the obligation to pay additional rent under Section 3.01B of the ground lease is solely the responsibility of the Apollo Theater Foundation as the primary tenant, as opposed to sublessees. And these amendments further clarify that only profits ultimately realized by the Apollo Foundation will factor into the calculation of additional rent obligations. Additional rent is defined under the ground lease as being equal to gross operating revenues less operating expenses. In any calendar year, and this is under the original lease, where operating expenses exceed gross operating revenues, such that the Apollo is not operating at a profit, then no additional rent would be due for that year. That's been the way the lease is structured, not proposing to change that structure. However, the tax credit lenders have indicated that the ability of subtenants and investors to turn a profit of some sort constitutes an essential part of the tax credit framework. They therefore wish to avoid having any potential profits allocated to the payment of additional rent unless those profits would clearly ultimately accrue to the Apollo Theater Foundation on their balance sheet in their capacity as the primary tenant. So the proposed amendments relating to the calculation of additional rent really just serve to clarify that it is the profits of the Apollo Theater Foundation, if any, that could be claimed as additional rent.
Yes.
The tax credit financing transaction is actually slated to close today if the corporation's board votes to approve the lease amendments. The big contingency there. It bears emphasizing in closing that no funding for this project is sought from this corporation. Notwithstanding this fact, it's notable that subject to an at the direction of grant included in the fiscal year 2020-2021 New York State budget at the direction of the executive chamber, the corporation's parent corporation, Empire State Development, has committed $10 million in funding for this project. Total project costs are estimated to be over $50 million. And this was approved by the ESD board in December of 2024. And that concludes my summary. Happy to take questions.
Thank
If any.
you, Carlene. Any questions or comments from the directors?
Financing is what, 40 million or something like that? And ESD, we're providing the 10. If I'm
Well,
correct. Oh,
This board isn't providing
Okay.
anything,
Okay.
but ESD has, and at the direction of grant, it's passing through us for the amount of $10 million. The total projected cost of the project, I believe, is $54 million.
Got it.
Exactly.
The one point you clarified was the profits of the Apollo Theater.
Mhm.
This was taken into account. How was it previously? Was there another stipulation that was?
There wasn't another stipulation, but there also weren't other entities that were expressly recognized in the original ground lease because, you know, the tax credit financing is going to necessitate some new sublease arrangements, some new agreements between various special purpose entities that will be expressly acknowledged in the amended lease. So because those entities are now referenced in the lease, there was just a desire to clarify that the additional rent provision is still just specific to the Apollo Theater Foundation.
So some belt and suspenders here. Largely, this is a point of clarification as much as anything. For
Exactly.
the comfort of the financing entities.
Exactly.
Yeah. And as a community member living in Harlem, knowing the Apollo quite well, my first concert was at the Apollo. It is about time. So I'm very, very happy to see a renovation go forward.
All right. Cool.
Great.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, that's good.
Noted earlier, there are no comments from the public with regard to this item, and I would now entertain a motion.
So,
Second,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Being no further business, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I want this to go on forever. Thank you, thank you. The motion carries. I'd like to thank everyone for participating in today's meeting. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, sir.
Thank
Thank you, thank you.
you.
Curtis, what?